Hello everyone, and we're here to talk about Destiny the Taken King, which is the latest expansion of Destiny, which is not out yet. It'll be out this fall, and they say that it's going to be great. So why don't you tell us immediately why it is going to be great?
Well, the Taken King is the next chapter we're telling in the story of Destiny. Basically what we did is we're introducing to the player Oryx, which is the Taken King, who's come to take revenge for the death of his son, an event that happened in the first year of Destiny. While the Taken King is designed to, have players continue a story that they may already seen before, we also made a very conscious effort to make sure that those existing players could play with potential new friends that may have not ever played the game before. And so we're definitely making sure that regardless of whether you've played the game before or not, you can join in on the fun and all the new content we're offering with the Taken King immediately when the game launches.
So what kind of content can users expect from the Taken King? How many missions, how many raids, how many?
Sure, there's a ton of new content in the Taken King. So first and foremost, we have a very new elaborate campaign that's filled with cinematics and sort of goes into the depth of the characters much more than we did before. It culminates with a confrontation between the player and Oryx, and after that the game kind of opens up and offers a whole range of additional sort of missions and adventures to have before. There's new strikes in there, there's new PvP maps in there, there's new PvP modes in there, there's a raid in there, we have a massive new destination to visit, so we're pretty confident players will have a lot of fun and spend a lot of time inside the new content in the Taken King.
You went right where I wanted you.
Good.
Because you actually said that there is more cinematics, more character interaction, more character maybe evolution. Because there's been criticism for especially for the first launch of the game, that the story was a little bit shallow, maybe a little bit simple, and there wasn't much character interaction. People were expecting more narrative from Destiny. So what did you do, and how did you ensure that this need for more narrative is being fulfilled with the Taken King?
So when you look at the events of year one, what we did is we more than anything, we introduced players to the world. We gave them access to all these places in our solar system, and by doing that, we also sort of introduced gradually these characters. Like in the Dark Below, in the House of Wolves, we've introduced new characters to the player, and what we wanted to do with the Taken King more than anything was not necessarily just introduce new characters, but to really go more in depth into the characters that players have already met. In fact, the main story we're telling in the Taken King, that, like I said, which sort of revolves around the arrival of Oryx, actually pertains to events that took place before. It deals with the fight that players will have gone through fighting Crota in the Dark Below, and so you can expect existing characters to make a return, and we'll expose some details about those characters that that we may have not touched on before.
Let's move to something completely different.
Sure.
There is one thing that quite a few fans have asked for, but there has been like complete silence from you guys. Well, not complete silence, there have been some hints there, I don't know, but is there ever going to be a PC version of Destiny?
Well, at this point we have no announcements to make about that kind of thing.
Can we hope at least?
I suppose you can always hope, but like I said, we have no announcements to make.
You're smiling though. Okay, so Destiny has always had a bit of a large jump in difficulty between single player missions, strikes, and raids. Like if you move from single player missions and strikes, there is a very big jump, and it gets even bigger in raids. Is there going to be some little bit of a smoothing of this curve. At times, it almost seems, especially in the original launch of Destiny, there is some content in which you kind of had to cheat the system to win.
Well, I mean, the Destiny is a game that was always designed to offer an activity for every mood, and that implies a certain difficulty level as well. We wanted to have activities that are very easily accessible, that do not necessarily require you to have very powerful gear or advanced weaponry or anything. At the same time, on the complete other end of that spectrum, we also wanted to make sure that you have chunks of content that actually do require you to be a very sort of powerful character, and there are several sort of beats in between those two extremes. I believe that much like everything else in the Taken King, the way we sort of distribute the activities along that spectrum has been optimized somewhat. We've sort of fine-tuned a lot of these systems to work a little bit better. So I think that if players will look at all of the things we're offering in the Taken King, they'll find that as they keep playing the game, they'll constantly find themselves sort of running into new possibilities, new things they can do, new sort of adventures they can have, and I think the entry level to some of those newer activities will be smooth for them.
Okay, we talk about story. Let's talk about slaughtering each other. What kind of PvP content is there going to be in the Taken King?
So we're offering a bunch of new modes in the Taken King. One of which is the one that we're showing right here on the show floor, which is Mayhem Clash. It is a mode that revolves around very fast regenerating supers, and because of our new subclasses that we're offering, this is a mode that we're very excited about. It really sort of helps players get very familiar very fast with the new subclasses that we're offering. At the same time, one of the other modes that we're talking about is Rift, which is much more objective focused and sees players sort of, it's basically Destiny's answer to Capture the Flag. And yeah, we're very excited about these things. We're offering 8 new PvP maps as well, and yeah, we'll think players will be spending quite some time sort of enjoying those.
It's a big expansion, that's for sure.
It is absolutely a very big expansion. We made a lot of effort to put as much content in there as we could.
Okay, going back to the launch of Destiny, the initial launch, is there anything you guys, having talked, I'm sure you guys brainstormed, talked a lot internally about it. Is there anything you would have done differently?
Well, it's an interesting question. I think that when we first started thinking about what we wanted Destiny to be, we always imagined it would be this world that would be alive, which would be filled with like millions of players, which would be constantly changing as well. But as you can probably imagine, all the way up until the point where those players actually entered the world and actually sort of started inhabiting it, if you will, we had to make a lot of assumptions about what that actually meant and how players would actually interact with one another and with the world. And to a certain degree, that was always sort of a hypothetical exercise, if you will. So you can imagine that once those players actually sort of flooded into the world, we started seeing behaviors that well, in certain cases we did anticipate, but in others were completely sort of surprising to us. And I think that over the course of the first year, there was definitely a lot of sort of nuanced things that we said, that's actually interesting. Like, why don't we make sure that we offer players more of the things they're excited about. To give you a very good example of that, for example, there's a bounty in the original year 1 content, which saw players go through a series of sort of quest steps, if you will, to acquire a weapon called Thorn.
Oh yeah, oh boy.
Exactly, and we found that players were very excited about the idea of having a clear goal at the end of a sequence of events, and that is a thing that we took that model and we basically refined it, improved it a little bit, and made sure that it made a return in the Taken King in various shapes and sizes.
Some weapons were. What I personally noticed that some weapons were very easy to acquire.
Yep.
Other weapons were like impossible, especially we weren't very good at PvP.
Yeah. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Like I said many times before, I still don't have my own Fatebringer, so I know.
So is there going to be any like a a little bit of a flattening of the curve there for acquiring that kind of weapons.
Well, I mean,
like a little bit more balancing and having them the same difficulty more or less.
I think the desirability of certain weapons is inherently tied to the difficulty that you have to the difficulty it takes to actually get them. And so I think that certainly there will be weapons that are hard to obtain in the Taken King. At the same time, we also made sure that we offer a whole bunch of new weapons that are not necessarily as hard to obtain, and a good example of those are the weapons that we've categorized in our new weapon foundries, if you will. These are weapons that players are going to get their hands on fairly soon as they enter the game, and we made sure that we brand these weapons in a way that allows players to get very familiar with what their behavior is like very fast. So our goal with that was like, hey, if you acquire a certain weapon of a certain brand, even if you've never used it, simply because of the brand that it carries, you'll have some kind of understanding of what it'll do, how it'll behave, and ultimately if you'll like it or not.
I'm guessing it's also to help new players get pretty much up to speed with older players.
Certainly, however, one of our core design principles for the Taken King was to make sure that players could join in on the fun almost immediately, regardless of whether they've played or not. And one of the things that we're doing to help players get to that point is by offering them a boost. And that is a mechanism that allows newly created characters to instantly level up to the point where they can engage in the activities that we're offering in the Taken King.
That's nice.
Yeah, and so the reasoning
some
behind
kind of
it
mentorship, more or less.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we wanted to make sure that, hey, if a group of friends consists of people who have played Destiny and people who have not, those people should still be able to play together, and that's why we're offering that boost.
Talking about playing together, especially at the beginning, social interaction was a little shaky in the game. So is there going to be anything new for the Taken King to enhance further social interaction between players, even just players that never met before and just met each other in a social space? They are in front of each other like this, to enhance communication between those players and just, hey, let's go into a match.
Sure, yeah, I mean, as people who have played Destiny before will be familiar with, like, we have activities that are match made and activities that are not. We think it is very important that ultimately sort of the ecosystem of Destiny remains a friendly place and a hopeful place, and we want to make sure that there are activities that you can join in on with just anybody, but the more challenging stuff that will typically require more coordination, a lot of sort of trial and error, if you will, we want those to sort of be accessible with pre-made groups. We're constantly looking at how that actually works and how that actually pertains to the content that we're offering, and it is a system that is constantly under scrutiny by us.
Like there are people that are meeting like on Reddit or on dedicated site to create their groups.
Yes.
Is there any chance that you're going to implement that kind of system natively in the game?
It's something that we're always looking at. At this point, we don't have any announcements to make, but it is something that obviously is super important to us. So yeah, we constantly monitor, what we're offering players there.
Okay, one last question.
Sure.
That's something more personal for me because I'm a fashion guy, and even games, I like good looking just the way I like to look, especially in games. And sometimes there is some equipment that is maybe advanced, but doesn't look very good for me, at least for my, like if I have to, I don't like to have a RAM skull on my face. Some people like it, I'm sure. It's a great piece of equipment, it's a great piece of art, but it's not my style. So is there going to be any kind of, have you ever thought about implementing some kind of fashion slot? Like, for instance, I want to have the stats of this piece of equipment, but I want the look of this other piece of equipment.
Well, the philosophy, the design philosophy behind virtually all of our gear has always been that we want to make sure that players have options, and we offer a number of those options in the game currently, like shaders, for example, that you can apply to virtually any kind of gear. We also want to make sure that there never is one set that is so powerful that everybody is always going to automatically obtain it. Yeah, that player choice is we definitely want to cater towards sort of the subjective preference of all of our fans, and we're confident that with the new gear that players will be able to acquire in the Taken King, there's something there for everybody.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
No problem at all. Thank you so much for coming.